Well, did I have an L take, as the kiddies like to say? Perhaps. So, I made a shorts video about the Odyssey after seeing some objections regarding the historical accuracy of it, or lack thereof. And I felt rather sarcastic about it. Surprise, surprise. There were some objections to what I was saying. And I thought about it and realized, you know what? You guys actually had a point. Now, obviously, this is all rather trivial in the grand scheme of things, particularly considering the state of the world overall. You know, a movie adaptation of a mythical story, big deal, right? But entertainment is still important, particularly when things are rough overall. And also, what's kind of important is consistency. Logical consistency, at least. And what I was saying there was going directly against arguments I've made in the past. Now, of course, opinions, whatever. Anyone is free to change their opinion at any time. Have I changed my opinion on this? Partially, I guess. But consistency is still important. So, I guess I'm just going to watch that video, which I've now set to unlisted because I've decided it is kind of trash, or at least it needs context, which is sorely lacking from a 1-minute video, and that was part of the problem. So I'm just going to watch it with you now and then comment on it. It's kind of weird to react to my own video a day later, but whatever. And by the way, I'm trying to muster the energy to not put you to sleep. Apologies if I'm still low energy because I have a pretty bad ME/CFS flare-up and I'm just feeling awful. If this is supposed to be late Bronze Age Mycenaean armor, then they drop the ball harder than Sisyphus's boulder rolls down the ramp. It does look pretty awful. Is it really, though? So, historical accuracy in Homer's Odyssey, eh? By the way, when people call him Homer, that kind of bothers me a little bit. Just a pet peeve. Are we talking about the historical personality of Polyphemus, single-eyed giant son of sea god Poseidon? Or are we referring to the historical account of Athena, the goddess of war and wisdom, assisting Odysseus on his journey? So, as you can tell, full sarcasm mode. Missing the point a little bit, or at least the point that I used to make. Or perhaps facial reconstructions of the sirens who lured sailors into their demise with magical song. Did you know, by the way, that the original version is half woman, half bird? We tend to think of the mermaid version, but that seems to just be a medieval thing, not the original. Surely there must be some archaeological finds of their remains.
Don't call me Shirley.
Totally unnecessary, but I saw an opportunity to reference Airplane. I had to. Ancient Greeks themselves didn't care about historical accuracy in their mythical retelling of the past. That's a bit of a questionable statement. I mean, in some ways, yes. You know what? I'll get back to that point a little bit later because I have quite a bit more to say about it. That's a funky crap down there, isn't it? So why would we obsess over a Marvel supervillain looking bronze helmet? Or hero, some people are drawing the comparison to Batman. And yeah, I can see that. It is a very odd choice for designing a helmet from that supposed era, regardless of whether you go by the time that the Odyssey was supposed to be set in or the time during which it was written. Either way, this is just weird. It is kind of funny, though, that they bothered to recreate an actual Mycenaean-type G-sword along with a totally anachronistic cuirass and Chalcidian-esque helmets. It's basically very standard, generic Hollywood Greek helmets. Like, they already did this kind of stuff in, what, the 60s? If not earlier. Looking about a millennium younger. But hey, as long as the movie got totally accurate sirens, we're good, right? It would be kind of funny to see the sirens portrayed like that. Anyway, so what's the problem here? Well, this is the kind of logic, hey, it's fantasy, or like there are fantastical elements or whatever, so you can just ignore everything. Otherwise, in terms of historicity, which is a bit of a cop-out, and I used to argue against that. So the question is why, like, what was I thinking? Why was I poking fun at that now? Frankly, the answer is quite banal. I just don't care. Whereas other people are still hoping to see more historical accuracy in movies, particularly Hollywood, I've pretty much given up on that. I've seen so much ridiculous nonsense. I've seen so many misrepresentations of straight up history in the sense of actual historical events rather than, myths told in historical times, that at this point my expectations are all the way down in the Mariana Trench. There are still things that will get me worked up, like AI slop misrepresentations of history, like straight up misinformation and distortion and all that. Now, in case of movies, saying it's just a movie is somewhat valid, but at the same time, it does influence the way people think about history. Just exposure to that, just seeing, this kind of stuff. All brown, dull pieces of armor where they should be polished bronze should look completely different, and generally this draining of color from anything historical or Mexican for that matter. Particularly draining the Middle Ages of color is really weird because they liked color if they could afford it. Right, before I forget, I wanted to say a few more things about historical accuracy back then, the way they treated it. So people didn't care about that the way we do now. It's quite clear, especially in the Middle Ages, where they just straight up portrayed events that happened like 1,000 years ago or more, and they just portrayed them as medieval. Everybody in those depictions was wearing medieval clothing and armor and come on, voice. And even accounts of events in the past could be embellished, retold, etc., because they cared about the storytelling part of it. Sometimes they were fairly accurate as far as we can tell, or sometimes the story is corroborated by another source, but very often there are differences. Different people have different versions, and sometimes they weave mythological elements into it, like creatures that we know never existed, things of that nature, right? So I do think there's some merit in the point that they didn't care that much about authenticity and factuality back then, so that can sort of excuse not being particularly observant of that in a take on a mythological story from back then. But at the same time, you can also argue it should be portrayed accurate to the time, either to the time from which that story comes or to the time period that this story is set in. Right? And particularly, again, when they do this, do it half-assed. And that's also where people make good arguments here, that their problem is this half-assed way of, there's a little bit of historical accuracy, but then it also totally deviates, and also complains that it just looks awful, which I agree with. If the costume design was either rooted in Mycenaean times or in the time of Homer, then yeah, it would look quite a bit better than the way it does. So that is absolutely understandable and valid objection. I mean, we're talking opinions here, right? Is anything an invalid objection in that sense? Like, you can feel about a movie any way you want, or a YouTube video for that matter. You can have whatever opinion you want, and if someone else doesn't like it, well, tough shit. And here's another thing. To be perfectly honest and transparent, when I saw this discussion around the Odyssey movie, I figured, well, I guess I should weigh in on that. But I didn't feel like it. I didn't care. Part of it is definitely just when you feel horrible due to chronic illness, it's hard to care about much other than doing whatever it takes to get better. That's one part. The other part is, I guess I've just mellowed out over the years. Like I used to get more worked up about these things. And, the older I got, the more I'm just like, you know what? To each their own. Like, who am I to tell directors or other artists or whatever what they want to do? They can do whatever the hell they want. And then people who watch that, who appreciate their work or don't, who partake of their work, if you will, then they're free to have whatever opinion they want. And yeah, it's all good. Like there's not really any reason to get all that intense about it from my perspective. But if you want to, then go for it, I guess. It doesn't really bother me one way or another, which is probably less fun to listen to than an agitated rant about something, right? If you're just like, well, whatever, I don't really mind one way or another, nobody cares. I just don't do fake outrage or fake anything. The reason I did that short video this way was at the time, I was just thinking, like, who gives a shit? So I just decided to poke fun at all the angry responses to it, which I guess is a bit rude. And in the process, I ended up contradicting what I used to argue for. And yeah, it's just not a good video, particularly, again, in that short 1 minute format where all nuance goes out the window. And for some reason, I just decided if I just put on a sarcastic tone, people will get what I mean. Except, why would you? Like, but anyway, I do think that was a little bit off. My take there, an L take, if you will. So I felt it would be good to talk a little bit more about that and clarify and all that. And that's about all the energy I can muster right now. So thanks for listening to this. Hope it wasn't too long-winded. And take care, folks.